I think you should start programming. And I don't necessarily mean you should go learn computer science, become a software developer, or spend the next 2 years learning how to write code. I mean, if there's something in your life that you think could work better, something you understand, something that frustrates you, or even something you're currently trying to learn, I think we're reaching a point where you should seriously consider trying to build software around it, because AI is changing who gets to participate. Hey, this is the Blueprint AppHarness channel. I'm not a programmer or a coder. I'm basically trying to learn how far I can get building apps and eventually building a business using AI, largely through natural language, using a GPT subscription and a Claude Code Max subscription. I built the AppHarness as a way of letting me work through a lot of that from my phone, using normal conversation and voice instead of writing code myself. This channel is really an experiment in documenting that process. What works, what doesn't, what I get wrong, and some of the lessons I pick up along the way. Hopefully there's something useful in here for other non-coders trying to figure this stuff out too. The channel will probably keep evolving as I learn, so stick around if that interests you. In this video, I want to explain why I think beginners should start building now, why being inexperienced can actually give you an advantage, and how learning what these tools can do can change the way you see problems in your own life and turn some of those problems into useful software. One of the things that stopped me for a long time was pretty simple. I couldn't code. So if I had an idea for software, there was a massive gap between having the idea and actually making anything. AI hasn't made that gap disappear, but it has made it small enough that someone like me can actually start crossing it. And I think that's important because the person who knows how to program isn't always the person who understands the problem best. You might understand the problem because it's your job or your hobby or something you're trying to learn or something you deal with every single day, and increasingly that might be enough to get started. There's another reason I think you should start before you feel ready. The beginner perspective isn't just valuable because beginners notice things experts forget. It's valuable because the beginner, or more broadly, the beginner to intermediate user, is probably much closer to the person you're actually building for. Think about almost any skill. If you're building something for hockey players, there are only a tiny number of NHL players. There are vastly more people playing house league, beer league, on a pond, or just trying to get better. If you're building something to help people learn handstands, the market probably isn't the people who can already do perfect handstands, it's the people who want to learn. Experts are usually the minority, and experts are also unusually good at working around bad systems. They know the terminology, they know the shortcuts, they know where to look, they can compensate for friction. The rest of the market often can't. So when you're a beginner yourself, you're getting direct access to the problems your future customer may actually have. What confused you? What information couldn't you find? What step felt harder than it needed to be? What almost made you give up? Those aren't just annoyances, they're potential product requirements. And as you become more experienced, the trick is not to lose that perspective. Because if you can keep seeing the problem through the eyes of the non-expert, you're probably designing for a much larger group of people than if you only design for the expert. So when I say I think you should start programming, I'm not saying you need to sit down and ask, what's a good app idea? I'd almost do the opposite. Go live your life. Do your job. Learn something difficult. Try a new skill. Pay attention to the parts that suck. And when you hit friction, don't automatically assume you just need to get better at tolerating it. Ask whether the process itself could be better. Could something repetitive be automated? Could information be presented differently? Could a confusing decision be simplified? Could you build a tool that would have helped you 6 months earlier? That's where I think things get interesting. I think the real skill here is learning how to make solutions for your own life. Not just apps for the sake of making apps, systems that actually do something useful in the real world. I'm always looking for ways to make things more efficient, better output, less wasted effort, more time left over for the things I actually want to spend my time doing. And when you start learning about automation, AI, and software, you start realizing that a lot of what you're really learning is how to build systems. That's what software is. You're taking some problem, some repeated process, some piece of friction, and trying to turn it into something that works better. And I think that ability, seeing the opportunity and figuring out what should exist, is becoming increasingly valuable as the technical barrier to actually building it comes down. The implementation still matters, technical expertise still matters, but the gap is narrowing, and that gives people who understand real problems a much bigger opportunity to participate. This has probably been the most surprising part for me. Before I started doing this, I didn't walk around with 30 software ideas in my head. Why would I? I couldn't build them. Now I have a list of probably 30 apps I want to make. My limiting factor isn't inspiration anymore, it's time. And I think that's because once you start understanding what these tools are capable of, you start seeing applications everywhere. You notice something inefficient at work. You notice something frustrating in a hobby. You try to learn something and think, there has to be a better way to do this. And now there's another question available to you. Could I build it? That's what I mean by making inspired software. Your life becomes the source material. You learn a capability. Then you learn where that capability can be applied. And the more you build, the better you get at recognizing those opportunities. So if you've never coded before, I'd call it vibe coding, call it programming with AI, whatever. Start learning what you're capable of making. Because once you understand the capability, I think the ideas start coming very differently. You don't need to wait until you're an expert. In some ways, being a beginner is exactly what gives you something useful to build around. You still notice the friction. You still remember what was confusing. And you probably have problems in your own life that an expert in software would never even know existed. So pay attention to those problems, learn what these tools can actually do, build something small around your real life, see if it works, learn from it, and then build the next thing. Because I think one of the most valuable skills you can develop right now isn't just knowing how to write code. It's learning how to recognize when software should exist and then knowing enough to start making it